Okay guys, so this video we're going to talk about the eye, and look at this model first so we can look at some of the external structures of the eye. You have two eyelids. These are called palpebrae, so you have a superior palpebrae and an inferior palpebrae. The space between the two eyelids is called the palpebral fissure, and then you can see your eyeball in there. You have the corners of your eye called the canthus, so you have a lateral canthus and a medial canthus, and on the medial canthus you have something called a caruncle, which is kind of like a lake, that little reddish portion at the medial corner of your eye, and you have two little holes called puncta, which lead into the lacrimal apparatus to drain tears. So this is the canthus with the caruncle, and then the holes would be puncta, and we'll look at those in more depth in a second. Eyebrow, of course everybody knows that. Now we can take this skin off, look at the muscles behind here. So now we're looking at the back side of the eyelid. So again, you have your inferior palpebrae and your superior palpebrae. You have tarsal plate embedded in those. You have a circular muscle around the eye called the orbicularis oculi. This is your tear gland called the lacrimal gland, and that's at the lateral corner of your eye. Now we can see the eyeball itself. You can see that it has muscles. These are called extrinsic eye muscles that control the eyeball movement. The white part of the eye is called the sclera. The clear portion covering your pupil, which is the dark hole in the middle, is called the cornea. And then the colored portion of your eye is called the iris. This muscle right here is most superior. This is actually the muscle that controls the upper eyelid. So it's called the levator palpebrae superioris muscle. It attaches to the upper eyelid. You can't really tell that, but this is its attachment point right here to the eyelid. So that's levator palpebrae superioris. It does not move the eyeball. Notice it is not attached to the eyeball itself. We can take that muscle off. You can see underneath you have a muscle attached to the eyeball itself. It runs parallel with this muscle. Even when I take it off the model, they're together. There's two muscles, one on top and one on bottom. This is the muscle of the eyeball. This is the levator palpebrae superioris for the eyelid. So your eyeball has 6 intrinsic eye muscles. 4 of them are rectus muscles because they're straight. They come straight back off the eyeball. 1, superior rectus. Over here, medial rectus. Inferior rectus down below. And lateral rectus over here. Now I've taken the eyeball out so you can see the muscles a little bit better. This is inferior rectus, lateral rectus, medial rectus, and then superior rectus would be on top of the eyeball. Right there. Now there's 2 other muscles. They're not rectus muscles. They're not straight. They're called obliques. You have one under the eyeball. This is inferior oblique. Kind of wraps around the bottom portion of the eye. And then you have superior oblique, which is right over here. It runs sort of with medial rectus almost, but it's going to come up and it's going to pass through this little cartilaginous ring called the trochlea, and it'll make a U-turn and connect to the sclera right here. So this little white structure is actually the tendon from this superior oblique muscle that comes up, goes through the trochlea, which is right here, makes a UE, and then connects to the eyeball. So when this muscle contracts, the eyeball rotates this direction. And so you can rotate the eyeballs with your your oblique muscle superior, and then inferior oblique down here. Superior oblique muscle is controlled by the trochlear nerve. It runs through the trochlea, and it's controlled by the trochlear nerve. Lateral rectus, here, is controlled by the abducens nerve, cranial nerve 6. This is lateral rectus controlled by abducens. Superior oblique controlled by trochlear, cranial nerve 4. All of the other muscles, the superior rectus, the inferior rectus, the medial rectus, and the inferior oblique, are all controlled by the oculomotor nerve. This is your optic nerve coming out of the back of the eyeball. Back here it's going to cross for your optic chiasm. This structure right here is your lacrimal sac. Your tears will be produced by the lacrimal gland over here on the eyelid. They'll flow across the eyeball this way, drain through the puncta at the medial canthus, and then drain into this lacrimal sac. This is in the lacrimal fossa, the lacrimal bone. So this is lacrimal bone here. You can see frontal bone, you can see nasal bone, you can see maxilla, infraorbital margin, infraorbital foramen. Okay, so lots of different bones on these models. This is your zygomatic bone. So make sure when you're looking at these special sense models that you look at some of the bony structures. Okay, now we'll look inside the eyeball.